Hello, listener. Welcome back to a different kind of Hex. This is a show about player experience, agency, and fun in tabletop role-playing games. After drawing blood with Mads on our last episode, José and I have an awesome guest on this time to help us draw out even more about failure, how we can find fun and opportunity in failure at the table, and even how and why to seek failure as a form of generative play. Wyllora is a talented illustrator, a discerning game designer, and most importantly, our friend and fellow member of the Open Hearth Gaming Community. And in the course of our conversation with her, we'll discuss sacrificial autumn rituals, loan sharks, and knives. Lots of knives. By the time you hear this, we'll be hurtling towards the winter holidays. And at the Open Hearth, that means our annual Game of the Year community podcast is right around the corner. If you're a member of the community, tell us about what your favorite game has been this year and why in a 2 to 3 minute recording and send it to the link in the show notes. And while you're there, you can check out Wyllora's art and game design work. Plus, feel free to reach out to us at adifferenthex@gmail.com with your feedback if you'd like to join us as a guest or if you'd just like to say hi. With that, let's learn a little bit about falling with style. It's Playing to Fail with Wyllora. Enjoy. Our guest today is Wyllora. Welcome, Wyllora.
Hi.
It's great to have you here, Wyllora.
Great to be here.
We have had some, what's like the hit version of a near miss? We've played together I'm holding my fingers
Tiny
together
bit.
so close together that there's almost no space. We played together a tiny bit, and so I'm very excited to get your perspective on what it's like to be a player and what it's like to game, I guess. Would you like to just introduce yourself to the listener? Who are you? What are you interested in? What are you doing with yourself? We'll have a moment in a little bit where we're going to ask you about your taste in gaming. So just like top level elevator pitch. Who are you?
I
No
never know
pressure,
what to say
Wyllora.
for these things. I'm primarily a visual artist. I do a lot of art. I dabble in like game design, mostly hacking things. So just homebrew stuff. Um,
You're very good at it, by the way.
oh, thank you. You've read my stuff. Oh,
hmm
wow. Oh, thank you. I'm working on the I put things up on itch that aren't done. That's my main thing I do.
That's the best way to do it, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I am working on those things right now. So yeah, um, I'm interested in a lot of horror stuff, fantasy creatures, vampires, mermaids, especially. Corporate horror has sort of become my thing recently. Other things I have as interests are lesbians, apostasy, and cults. So, good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
can mix and match that stuff
I
and
am
take
Misham.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
Mishmash. Yeah, perfect.
hmm
you ever read The Locked Tomb, Wyllora?
Oh, you read me so well. Yeah. Yeah, I love that series.
I'm waiting for the fourth one.
We all are.
I might
We
be
all
waiting.
are.
Might be waiting for a long time. Maybe we'll get to hear a little about some of the games that you're working on as we go through this episode today.
Cool.
And you're a player in the Open Hearth, right?
I am a player in the Open Hearth. Yes. I
Yay!
joined during last year's Shared Hearth, and this year I am facilitating 4 sessions on it. So,
So
Wow.
we're coming up pretty much on your 1 year anniversary.
yes, yeah,
That's
pretty much.
exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Perfect. Celebrations are in order.
Yeah, woohoo. I
And
played so many games this past year. It's great.
And in order to celebrate that, we're going to be talking about tragedy
Yes.
and
Failure,
farce. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
horrible things happening to our characters.
Yes.
Delightfully horrible things, hopefully.
So, if you had to pick a poison, what is your flavor in games? If you want to
Yeah.
use a couple examples of games to illustrate the point, that's perfect. If you want to just say, I like horror, that's good enough too.
I really love a corruption arc. I love cool powers and I love when power corrupts. So it's amazing to see that happen with characters. I'm really into just seeing how a character changes throughout the game and kind of exploring really fraught and friction-filled relationships between characters. That's kind of what I'm working on being more okay with because I'm a big softie and I want everyone to be friends. Even though it's sometimes a lot more interesting when they're not. So yeah, that's what I'm
Weren't,
into right now.
weren't you just talking about this last episode, Jose, where you were talking about like experiencing a kind of bleed when there's tension between characters and you are feeling afterwards like, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's okay, but I'm going to check.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really helps when you have people who egg you on too. They're like, yes, go harder, do
Yeah.
it.
Be meaner to me.
Pull the trigger,
Pull
push
the
me off that
trigger.
cliff.
Make my life impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting into our theme a little too early here, I think.
Uh-huh.
We're
Uh-huh.
warming up. We're warming up.
Um, Jose, what are you into these days? What's your poison?
What is my poison these days? Wow.
What you do not smell is called iocane powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons known to man.
Well, as I've said before, just kind of mirroring what Wyllora just said about characters that have. You spoke about corruption. I hadn't thought of that as a theme, but I like the idea of that, and I might pull that and try that with my next character because I don't normally think about corruption themes. But Ian and I are playing in an Apocalypse Keys
Ooh.
game, but it's more like my character there. What I'm exploring is him being really, really awfully bad in his forgotten past and
Mm.
now he's somehow different. But and we don't know exactly whether he'll go back to his old ways or not. So maybe he will
Yeah, yeah.
corrupt anew. Okay, I can get behind that. So
Whole new type of corruption. I
yeah,
love characters when they're so sure they're doing the right thing and they're a good person and they're
oh
just
yeah,
getting worse and
they're getting
worse.
worse and worse and worse.
There's something here that makes me think of like amateur fireworks technicians, of like
Yeah.
you sort of light the fuse and you're like, how's this one gonna go? I have no idea.
I don't know. Will I blow this one up? Will I blow myself up in the process? Yeah, so I think I am enjoying that. I'm also playing in a game where I'm just beginning a character and I'm like setting them up for the fall. So I'm making them more kind of likable, etc.
Mm.
now at the beginning and interesting and mysterious, and then I'm going to make him horrible later on. I'm pretty sure. So I'm interested in these kinds of reversals or setting a character up to like bring them down later, or to make them, more morally reprehensible is the word I wanted to use, but maybe ambiguous would be a little bit
No,
better.
I get you. I get you.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's just good to be like, my character they're problematic. They are not they're not being a good person.
They
They're
are
like,
not a good person. They are
they're
monstrous
just
in
like
some
not being a
way.
good friend, you know? They're like, they're
Yeah.
not saying the right things.
How would you characterize your play style? Like if someone was, well, how would you do it? Also, like maybe
Yeah.
imagine what another person might say about, well, this is what it's like to play with Laura. This is what she goes for. What comes up for you when I ask that question?
Yeah. I had to like Google like what are play styles, and then I'm like, I don't like Googling this actually. I don't really so I think I'm still figuring that out, but then I hit on like exploratory, and I think that that's sort of what we've been talking about and
Yeah,
how I like to kind of explore the character's world and where they might go in the game, and feel things out a
I
lot.
think so.
Yeah. Another thing is I like sort of getting to dive deep into a character that I'm playing, like in and outside of the game. I like make up potential scenarios and kind of run them through it to sort of test out like what makes this character tick.
The
Or
term
you
that
know, if
came up
I
for me was stress test. It was a stress test.
stress test them, yeah, a little bit. It's like if I threw them into this, like what would their reaction be? How would it differ from like other characters or, you know, my reaction to it? Um, yeah, so I do a lot of that, just kind of brainstorming, and then I draw them. Of course, I'm very visual,
Right.
so I make a lot of art. Um, I'll make like Pinterest boards and playlists and stuff, and just kind of have some idle daydreaming. I like to be able to get into that.
Hmm.
Jose knows that I'm a big playlist maker.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah. So you say that you enjoy exploring the character's world and you like to dive deeply. Do you find that you prefer a character who is like new to the environment of the game, like an isekai type situation where you are like the world is completely new to me, or do you like to play a character who is has some kind of grounding in that environment already? Like for example, in a game that we've already talked about on this podcast, Blades in the Dark, which is all
Hmm.
about a particular city and the character's position in that city. Is there somewhere that you feel most comfortable on that kind of
Yeah.
axis?
Yeah, I think I am far on the immersed in the city
Hmm.
axis. So I've played some characters that are sort of brand new, fresh, but I like to get my teeth into like uh, the past of this character, how they relate to the setting. I tend to really get into RPG settings, so that's a fun way for me to kind of explore that setting is like through the character and like what kind of factions have they met? What are their opinions on all of this stuff?
Well, I'm curious about you, Jose, because you know you have had some different play experiences recently. As you said, you're starting a new character in a new game. How do you think that your playstyle has changed at all since the last time we've spoken, or are you trying out anything new?
Well, I will say, I think I mentioned this before we started recording, that I started a new game which has a very, speaking of settings, has a very amazing setting, evocative and fascinating setting, and a lot of lore around the setting. It's called Heart, the City Beneath. And I decided to play it on your recommendation, Ian, because I had heard you say that you really liked this game and thought it was really cool. And I was like, okay, let me sign up for this game. And then I discovered that it was a dungeon crawl. And I had not played anything, any kind of game that would be characterized as a dungeon crawl in many, many, many years. And so part of me felt like, oh, can I do this? Do I know how to do this anymore? Will I be have to be counting gold coins and looting bodies and murder hoboing and things like that? And can I do that in a way that's going to be fun for me? The jury is still out on whether I'm capable of doing this, but and I've only just started the game. Maybe we've only had we've just had a session 0 and a first play session. I am enjoying myself. And I'm finding ways, because like you, Willora, I'm really interested in character and developing a character. And so I'm trying to learn how to do that within the context of something like a dungeon crawl. We're in a party and we're
Mhm.
going through some dungeon like place, and there's going to be dangers and things like that. And within that context, how can I reveal who my character is? How
Mhm.
can I develop who my character is? Because that's still kind of where my sweet spot is. But I'm challenging myself to do it within a different kind of context. And so far it's been fun. And we'll see. You can ask me again next time, Ian, and I'll see where I'm at
We'll get a
next
real
month.
time
A real-time
progression.
progression on how
Yeah.
Jose does with the dungeon crawl. Yes.
Well, you've brought us beautifully right around, Jose, to the topic of our show today.
Um,
Heart, the City Beneath is an extremely good and extremely literal example of this idea of playing to fail in RPGs. Now, just to kind of start us out here, because unlike our last episode where we talked about bleed, which has a kind of almost a kind of scholarly definition, I think it's likely that there have been dissertations written about bleed. I don't know that playing to fail is as neatly codified as the terminology that we used in the last session. So I guess I'd just like to start by asking you, Wyllora, as our guest today, what does it mean to you to play to fail? On the face of it, you might say, why would I want to play to fail? Aren't we here to succeed? So can you help us to like untangle that seeming contradiction?
Yeah. I think there's a few different ways you could go with it, depending on if you're talking about, character goals or uh, what failing looks like for the character, or failing in game terms, like you failed a roll, like that's a very cut and dry, like that's a failure. And then, you know, as a player, what your goals are with the game is like, it might be success for you to make your character fail. And and then there's an even deeper layer of your character may want to fail something,
mhm.
and that could be a success for them. Like the stakes of the game could be something, say, in a game I'll probably mention a little more later, Harvest. Like to succeed in that game is to be complicit in violence. So that is a game of folk horror and sacrifice, and so to kind of be a successful person in that community, to be a success in the mechanics of the game as well, is to become the knife bearer. And so your character may not want to go that way. They may want to reject that, uh, even if it means that they're under the knife. So yeah, I think there's a few different ways you could look at it. It's a very open-ended idea. Um, but yeah, it's great for tragedy. It's great to have a place from where your character can rise up if you're not looking for a tragic end, if it's just to have obstacles that they can overcome, or to show where they're starting from. It's great to have them fail. Uh, and it's also great, I think, for failure to change the game state. So to me, playing to fail, there's an intent there. You're trying to fail. You're trying to get your character to a place where uh, they're not succeeding in life.
To
Hmm.
paraphrase the famous, I think this is a John Harper quote, you're trying to crash the stolen car
Yes,
that you're
yes.
driving. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
To see how beautiful of a fireball you can make, I guess.
Mhm,
Fly
mhm.
off the bridge, right?
Yeah,
Humble.
There's a reason why, people like demolition derbies, I think.
Yeah.
yeah. There's something beautiful about it. There's something cathartic, I think. I think there's also something endearing when you make a character like cringe fail, like you're like they're not good at what they do. You can make them sort of relatable and human in a way that if they're just kind of purely escapist power fantasy, they might not have that depth that you want. That sort of human level of like that they're messing up really bad.
What do you think, Jose? What do you have a conception of what it means to play to fail?
Yeah, I think I do. And maybe I'll start with a case and then and try to get the abstraction from the case. So I'm just thinking about last night. I was playing in a game with you, Ian, last night. And
We were playing Apocalypse Keys.
Apocalypse Keys, yeah. And so we're playing monsters that are monstrous. They're not. They're struggling between their monstrosity and their humanity, and that's kind of the thematic.
Yeah,
The
famously
foundation.
failure free, friction free game.
Friction
Obviously.
free game. Yeah. So that tension, that dramatic tension or emotional
Yeah.
tension is so central to that game. Are you going to be monstrous? Or are you going to be human? Are you going to go back and forth? Are you going to mix it? Are you going to? I'm thinking this was a mechanical moment. So it was a mechanical moment, Wyllora, that I'm going to
Hmm.
describe where I failed a roll, and I could have at that moment bumped it with a mechanical effect, like the game has these things called bonds that you have between players, and you could use that to bump a roll into the sweet spot where everything goes the way your character wanted it to go. So it's
Hmm.
about character goals. You're right. And I remember saying out loud, "Well, what would be more fun
Hmm.
to take this failure or to get the sweet spot one?" And I looked at it, I was like, "Oh, that failure looks really fun. I'm going to do that one." So there are a couple of things that arise for me when I mention that example. One is that I think in the more traditional kind of I'm a hero and I'm, trying to get more and more powerful and achieve all my characters' goals kind of mode of playing, we expect kind of the GM to
Hmm.
introduce adversity for our characters, and then we respond to those adversities and we try to overcome them. Perhaps we don't, and then we dust ourselves off and keep going or whatever. But when you say a phrase like playing to fail, who's doing that? It's the player who's playing
Hmm.
to fail, right?
Hmm.
And so it's a kind of decision on the part of me as a player that I want to do something that will introduce, say, adversity or complexity or conflict or hardship to my character or to my fellow characters too, because sometimes shit goes sideways for everybody, when you play to fail. And that might be something we talk about later when we talk about
Hmm.
party mechanics. So yeah, so part of the playing to fail for me feels like embracing that role of creating adversity and drama in the story that we're co-creating together as a player. So I'm starting to contribute to that magic because yeah, stories like conflict and drama and adversity. Of course, you don't want everything to go well. When do I get to dip my spoon in that? That's what we say in Spanish. We say meter la cuchara, which means to like dip your spoon in something. Like I can take some of that for me.
Little taste.
That's just yours.
Hmm.
So I get to meter la cuchara in the drama generation machine.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's what comes up for me, and there might be more things. What about for you?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've talked on the show already about how I came into the hobby through GMing, and
Mm.
like many people, I started with fifth edition D&D. Really, I mean, I had some splat books for 3.5 before that, but I listened to an episode of The Adventure Zone, the McElroy's actual
Yeah.
play. I'm putting heavy scare quotes on actual play because a lot of it is just like brother based improv bits. I saw this happening on the internet and I thought I want to be a part of that, and the way to make that happen is to be the one to run the game. And that game has this sort of particularly curious and tangled history of a lot of players want for it to be a vehicle for narrative storytelling.
Hmm.
And also it has these roots in a very trad life or death sword and sorcery dungeon crawling game. That's the origins of that idiom of play. And while we were leading up to this episode, I was thinking about this idea of playing to fail. I was nodding as you were saying a lot of the things you just did, Jose, and you, Laura. It is interesting to bring adversity into the game, but there's a really good video on the Folding Ideas YouTube channel. You might be familiar with his line go up video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But he talks about the name of the video is why it's rude to be bad at World of Warcraft. That is to say,
Ooh.
in a game where you can confidently assume that there's not going to be any shortage of hardship and adversity, to the degree that it's not a guarantee that your character is coming out the other side. Depending on the play group that you have, it could actually be bad manners. It could be quote unquote bad play
Hmm.
to introduce further adversity, to not make the optimal decision, a sack full of gold, or all getting turned into jelly by the lich priestess who lives under the mountain.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Shane, running in a incandescent grottos. I guess this is where we're kind of coming to the crux of playing to fail, because I do think in that mode of gaming, that sort of
Mhm.
OSR trad advertised as being very lethal, and especially in the last, I would say, like 20 years or so since the start of the OSR, has kind of leaned in some cases into the slapstick nature of that inherent violence.
Mhm.
You and I, Jose, played a one shot of Morkborg a little while ago.
I remember.
A huge part of the fun of that game was making a character, like randomly rolling for the character and seeing what ridiculous results came up. And so I do think that there's an incentive in some ways to send your character out and have them get bitten in half by the Demogorgon or whatever, because then you get to make a new character and have a
Oh,
new
true.
a new little gremlin to. I guess it's just a question of whether you're actually taking the stated goal of surviving the dungeon very seriously or not.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
game, when I entered it, I haven't played a lot of OSR games, so those are old school revival games, right? Trying to get a taste of the early years of D&D. But when I read through that game, Mork Borg, that particular one, because of the tone of the game, which is is pretty surreal, well, absurdist maybe would be the correct term for it.
Mm.
And these characters that you are making are pretty reprehensible, and I use that word this time without reservation. My sense when I was reading it was like, oh, my character is a complete fuck up, and it's reprehensible. And I'm just going to lean into that as much as I possibly can. And then after the first session, or the first time I played it, it was a one shot. I thought afterwards, did I mess up? Did I do something that the game wasn't wanting me to? Did the game actually want me to try to survive and be clever and find interesting ways to like solve these problems instead of just like running into the mouth of the Demogorgon to use that example, and flailing and making funny noises while I do it. And so I was wondering whether I was reading again, like when you were talking about playing against the premise of the game.
Mm.
I didn't know whether I was reading it wrong, and maybe I was. When we were talking about some of this episode on Discord, one of the community members, Danny, asked the question that you're asking right now, I think, Ian, which is, can playing to fail really gum up the works or work against the premise of a game? And someone else, Anders, I think, said, well, it can definitely mess up D&D. And then I came back with the question, well, is it impossible to have a tragic character in a D&D campaign? So I put that question
Yes,
to
Jose.
you
No
all.
one, no one's ever done it before.
No one's ever done it before.
And no one will ever do it again because it's impossible. No, I think there's an interesting thing we're sort of circling around, which is the idea of playing games wrong. Um,
Right.
like if you're playing to fail, usually a game has a win condition if you're thinking about like board games, card games, dice games. But what I'm also thinking about is a kind of meme of someone asking you like, "Oh, how's your D&D session going? Are you winning?"
My nephew plays a lot of video games, and sometimes I'll play a game every once in a while, and he'll ask me, he'll say, "Oh, so did you beat that game?" And I was like, "Did I beat the game? What do you mean?" And he means, "Did you complete the game?" And that's basically beating it. That's the win condition. You make it to the end, I guess. But I
Yeah.
would think, in some games, video games or tabletop games, win conditions can be varied and there can be bad endings and good endings. And I don't know, maybe a playing to fail a video game, you would get the worst ending possible. Like an RPG, a video RPG, play Baldur's Gate or something like that and just get the most horrible ending possible. I'm sure
Well,
people do that. I'm sure it's not
I think
unheard
that's
of.
a thing for sure. I mean, there's a whole mode of chess where you're trying to get rid of all your pieces. You're trying to
Right.
force the other player to take your pieces.
Right.
Uh,
Can the player bring in their own win conditions? I'm going to keep using that word.
yeah.
No, it's a word about game design, right? Can you come in as a player and say, this is my win condition?
Well,
I
that's
die
kind of
a
a
tragic
wish.
death.
It's kind of at the end of the session, you'll be like, what are you wishing for? Or even at the start, like, what do you want to see in this game? And
What do you
like,
want to see?
I want my character to fall in love and get dumped horribly, like there's certainly games where you could go in with that sort of experience in mind. And so to fail in that way, for your character to fail in that way, is winning for you.
But it's different to have that to go into a game of, let's say, Morkborg with the
Oh
intention to
yeah.
get done than it is to go in to the telenovela soap opera
Yes.
game Pasión de las Pasiones, where that is kind of within the premise of the game, right?
True, true. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think for sure there's games that are not set up for you to get certain experiences out of them. And
Yeah.
even, if you're looking at a game with the intent to play it wrong, that's kind of got to be we all got to play it wrong,
Right.
like
Yeah.
otherwise you're just going to be going against the tide of the rest of the players. And that's usually not very fun for anybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I do think that there are. I wasn't going to get out of this episode without bringing in some scholarly terminology because
Oh, go for it.
that's just what my brain is like. There's this term that I've been really interested in since I learned about it called a reward cycle,
Mm,
which is to say, like the kind of the thing that keeps a player coming back to a game. This is
hmm.
often used in the context of video games, as you were talking about, Jose, especially in the context of gotcha video games.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
for example, you get to the end of your match of Overwatch and you get the random loot crate, and there's the chance that you're going to get that particular outfit for your main character. These things come with a lot of prestige attached. If you are just using the basic model of the character, that shows, well, you just haven't been playing the game very much.
Hmm.
But I think that it can be applied in a lot of different ways that aren't so attached to that kind of mercenary like
Kind of
attitude.
capitalistic.
Yeah, I mean, one of the video games that I play the most is called Destiny 2, which has its own whole problem with microtransactions and everything.
Hmm.
But within this game, there is a really wide variety of activities that you can pursue. You can go
Hmm.
after the most difficult player versus environment challenges that the game has to offer, which are called raids. These take 6 people to participate in, require a great amount of interplayer communication, require you to be really optimizing your build, your character's equipment and abilities. And it's this huge moment of catharsis when you overcome that sort of final challenge and you get the chest that spews loot everywhere.
Hmm.
But also there is a player versus player mode. You're not getting the same reward cycle to trigger as when you complete the raid and you defeat the final boss when you are that much faster on your Twitch response than the person who's on the other end of the internet connection. And you are able to pull a fast one on them in some way. Like that is its own hit of dopamine when you are able
Hmm.
to pull off a slick play in a player versus player environment. And also, then there's what's called within this community the true end game of Destiny, which is fashion. By doing all of these different activities, you're sort of collecting different armor appearances and sort of outfits and
Oh.
things for your character. And so
Hmm.
putting together an outfit to look good when you're doing any of these other activities is its own pursuit. And
Yeah.
I think that this can be applied to tabletop games as well. We've talked about this a little bit already, Jose, this idea of it's okay to just inhabit a vibe.
Mhm.
You don't have to have an arc. it's okay to just be like, I'm the Sherlock Holmes in the room, I'm the smart mastermind, I'm going to solve the crime. Or, I'm the Geordie LaForge on the Starship Enterprise, and I'm going to spout some techno babble at you. And at the end, we're going to reverse the polarity and save the day.
Hmm.
But also, you were talking before, Wyllora, about wanting to explore the depths of the interiority of the character.
Yeah.
And these are two different reward cycles that are firing that are not
Yeah.
necessarily at cross purposes, I don't think.
That's true. Like if you're playing against someone whose character is not or is not in it for that kind of character arc and developing the character, you can still have like a perfectly good playing off of each other. Like the static character can still really impact my character as well, even if they're changing. Uh so yeah, I think those can definitely work together.
Yeah.
The getting out of the dungeon with a sack full of loot and not falling into the mouth of the Demogorgon is a reward cycle.
Hmm.
But running into the mouth of the Demogorgon is also a reward
Reward
cycle.
cycle.
Yes. Yes.
Especially when you scream in very dramatic and hysterical ways as the teeth come down.
And then the other player characters could be like, "No, we have to do it for Jose.
He gave up everything for
Sacrificed
us.
himself."
Right. Or the other thing of like, oh, more treasure for me. Let's split
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You can provide opportunities for your fellow players to react or however they want. Yeah.
And so what we're talking about, it seems like, is that we can have different kinds of goals for our characters that don't necessarily put us at loggerheads with our
Yeah.
enjoyment. We can all each have our special brand of enjoyment, potentially.
So that when I want for my character to go out in a glorious blaze of hubris, that's not a betrayal of the premise, the sort of commonly held premise of the group.
Yeah, I think it's important to, communicate your intent with those things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trust between players that you don't want to violate and you want to kind of lean into, especially if you are playing to fail, that, you are sort of giving of yourself or of your character, and then they can respond in whatever way they respond with their character. But if they're like, I don't want this, please take it back, you're gonna wanna be able to talk about that above the table, not kind of necessarily figure that out in character.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think the example I was giving earlier about, getting a low roll in Apocalypse Skis, I'm pretty sure I did this, and I'm pretty sure it's common practice at that table is to say, what do you guys think would be more fun?
yeah,
Would this be more fun? Or I kind of feel like the low roll, staying with the quote unquote failure, is the more fun one. And you kind of get the sense of
yeah,
the table, whether, because sometimes it doesn't just impact your character, it impacts the narrative, it might impact other characters directly or indirectly. So I think in terms of that transparency, or collaboration might be the right word for it,
hmm,
including the rest of the table in some of those decisions. And I think by doing that, you're telegraphing, like when I say something like, ooh, that fail one sounds really good, I'm telegraphing something about what I'm valuing in the game to my fellow players and to the GM as well. I like the idea that we could all do it, all have our fun, all have our cake and eat it too. We're not going to like always be stepping on each other's toes. I'm sure there are extreme cases that we could outline where that would be the case, but I think there's a lot more flexibility in these games in general, commonly, I would say.
I'm curious, well, Laura, can you give us an example of a time that was really memorable for you, that where you did make that kind of playing to fail decision?
ooh.
Anecdote time.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I think it's the ones I can think of are when I sort of came out with this kind of like, I don't know, I think she might do this, guys. What do you think? And then I get that sort of egging on, like, yeah, go for it. And so the one I'm thinking of now is specifically in my game of Harvest. We had three characters. So we had my character, Mayfly. Um, you see, I named her going in, being like, I'm not gonna get attached. She's dead. She's gone. Uh, she turned out being miserably immortal. So uh, that's what happened to her. But we had Mayfly, we had Aoife, and we had Cullen Oak. Mayfly and Cullen Oak were at odds the entire game. They were tearing each other's families apart, just out of spite and to get to each other. And Aoife was kind of in the middle, and Mayfly had a sort of thing going on with Aoife, you know. Aoife was going to be chosen to be the sacrifice. We knew that at that point. Mayfly was like, I'm going to help you escape. But then there's just this moment where Aoife, in Mayfly's eyes, betrayed her in offering up Mayfly's brother instead of Aoife. Like, no, no, we can still escape. And I'm like, I've been playing this like Mayfly really wants to help Aoife escape. She hates this island. She in fact hates her family, but she's gonna turn Aoife into Cullen. She's gonna go and like and and the thing she didn't want to happen, which was the sacrifice going through, is going to happen. And they were like, I mean, go for it. And that's basically where the game ended.
And how did it feel at the end, Wyllora? So what I'm hearing is that your character's goal was completely thwarted, right? In the
Yes.
narrative, yeah. And how did you, as a player, feel at the end of all of that?
Oh, it was great.
That was
It
awesome.
was awesome. Um, it definitely was like part of me like wanting to take it back. 'Cause I'm like, this is a big swing. She made a really strong choice that she's gonna regret forever and is gonna change the whole game. But it made for a really cool ending, and so like you kind of it felt amazing to have that sort of pivotal moment that you can just keep thinking about happening. So yeah, and I think that overall was a collaboration between the three of us players. Like, okay, how do we want this to end? Do you want your character to make it out of this? Or are you okay with mine stabbing you in the back?
Well, it's so interesting that you talk about it like that because I do think it requires a degree of dramatic irony.
Yes, yes. I was thinking that earlier that like something I really enjoy is that dramatic irony.
Because you would have to know, you would have to have a sort of third person omniscient sense of what would be tragic,
Hmm.
what would be hubristic, what would be poetic
Yeah.
for this character. In a way that if they had that sense, if you were playing that character with a sense of like, I'm gonna go and do the tragic thing because it's cool to be tragic, like that would that might wear thin, I think, as a
Yeah, yeah.
pretty quickly.
That would be a pretty different character, I think, to play.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's interesting. What do you think, Jose? Have you ever had a time where you have consciously pulled the ripcord on failure? Have you like ever dove into failure as opposed to spilling into it?
So, for some reason, right now, in the moment, what's coming up for me is a character that I talked about, I think, in the last episode. I was talking about Lady Camilla, the horrible colonialist explorer, and
I was just listening to that one
in the between.
before this.
Towards the very end of that run, she had been very breezy and very entitled, super entitled. I mean, entitled is too soft a word to describe her, and very in control, always in control. And towards the end, I began to play her as played with, or reveal her misgivings, her guilt, as she sees her death coming.
Mm,
And
hmm.
then I got to, yeah, I remember, I can't remember the exact setting, but I remember it was another character who offered me something that then I took. And we had this up at night kind of moment where she's in her nightgown and she's musing in the library because she can't sleep, thinking about this confrontation that's about to come with the big bad in the game, whose name is the Mastermind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to play her as someone who feels like there are things that she needs to atone for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had her sacrifice herself in the
Mm-hmm.
final battle. And I remember the GM saying, "Do you want to do this, Jose?" And I was like, "Yes, this is what I want to do. This is what feels right." And it did feel right afterwards. It felt like this sense of completion. I think it was a mutually assured destruction between the Mastermind and Lady Camilla, as I recall. But it was this lovely conflagration. I was thinking about it when you were talking with Laura. It's almost like a narrative satisfaction of having told a
Yeah.
good story and really for it to like go ka-chunk and something
Yeah.
to really gel in a way that feels like, yeah, we hit a sweet spot with that.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, it didn't turn out so well for Lady Camilla, or maybe it did turn out well. I mean, she got maybe some small redemption from her transgressions. So that's what comes up for me when you ask me that question, Ian, today, in this conversation with the two of you.
Yeah. Uh, It's something that we're always circling around this, Jose, is that the mode of play that you and I are really exploring. I'm remembering playing a game very similar to the Between, Jose, called Public Access, which I've spoken
Mm-hmm.
about on this show before. The character that I played in that game was very much a precursor to the one that I'm playing in Apocalypse Keys right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wasn't going to be able to stay with this run for as long as they wanted to play because my schedule was changing and there was just some like normal stuff in my life. And so it felt satisfying for me to really lean into having this character go out in as like flashy and dramatic a way as was possible and to generate a lot of hooks for the other characters in the process.
Yeah.
If I can be a character who, rather than in a Morkborg where it's just like you might come around the corner and there's an arrow trap and you're dead.
It's all over.
Um, if I can be a character who is motivating to the other characters, even if it takes my character's death,
Yeah.
or in that public access character's case, becoming eternally a late night talk show host for the cosmos just beyond our perception. That's good. You and I, Jose, and now Willora, and everybody that we've had on this show before, and any future guests, reach out to us at a different hex at gmail.com if you'd like to come
Please
on the
do.
show. We're not taking for granted that the story is going to just come along to us naturally.
Yeah.
And we're not taking for granted that it's going to be the result of what the GM has prepared for us. We're all active participants in this process if we want for the process and eventually the end result to be satisfying. We kind of have to make it that way. What we've been talking about here today is that failure makes the broth rich.
The real big bad evil guy is the mistakes we made along the way.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking also that we curate along the way. I was talking about kind
Mm-hmm.
of the end, at the end, the epilogue for Lady Camilla, but along the way, sometimes with characters, we curate this kind of failure, right? As
Yeah.
players, we can. I mean, one of the things that I did want to talk about was this idea of handing over a dagger to
Yes.
either the GM or to another player, a dagger that's specifically designed to torture my character.
Let me see what you have.
And I wonder, Willora, whether you have, if is that something on your radar when you're playing? Do you hand out daggers, and why would you do that?
Yeah. I mean, mostly I feel like I get handed daggers a
You
lot.
get handed daggers.
I'm like
Starting a collection.
starting a collection. Yeah, well, I use them, so they're gone after I use them. They're single use. I'm thinking of a really memorable time that was quite literally a dagger. I was a fellow player in this game. It was Good Society Fey Courts. game. So we were playing fairy courts characters, and my character was rivals with this other character, and that player knew he couldn't be there for the final session, so we're playing out this dueling party, and we know that these two characters are going to duel. They have to come head to head, and so we're taking a break, and he DMs me, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to kill me when we fight? Do you want do you
Would
want
that
to
be
kill my
fun?
character?" Whoa, yeah, sure. Let's do it. Um,
Well,
so
don't be too hasty with your answer, Wyllora.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it is really like, uh, I don't know, there's that trusted vulnerability a little bit, and also just that kind of, yeah, let's up the stakes for everybody, by introducing, this is going to be the conclusion between our two characters' story is, my character is going to kill yours in this duel. And that was awesome.
Yeah.
And you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube after that. Like at no point they can't the series is never going back to a point
Oh
before
yeah.
two characters have fought to the death.
Even if it's like, we can bring the character back. They're fairies and stuff. They have magic. It's like you can't unkill Aelith. Aelith's dead. Like Aelith
That
has been
happened.
killed. So it changes things for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't know when I was thinking about something I did in Apocalypse Keys, the game that Ian and I are in right now, where I just introduced an NPC that my
Mm.
character was terrified of. And so he runs out of the subway station and he's like, oh my God, there's one.
Uh-huh.
So, and I just threw that out there. I didn't know who she was or what she was or what might happen, but I did know that my character was terrified of her and would do anything to get away from her. And it was somewhat irrational. Um, and sure enough, I think in this case, the GM, I think, picked it up and moved with it forward.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody could, because if there's enough story agency within a game, they could say, "Oh, you know who's standing? Oh my God, you know who's standing on the corner, look, watching us right now? It's that bag lady." They could
Yeah.
have done that at any point, and then my character would have been terrorized and gone away, run away screaming. So it's interesting to just like throw them out. They don't always get taken up, but things that are going to knock my character off their balance, create dramatic tension for them, create negative emotions for them, adversity, whatever it might be, and to generate them myself and offer them out to the table. There's a way, I don't know what I want to say about it, except that,
You're sort of handing out IOU coupons for failure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not proactively advancing your own failure, but you are just exposing your big flashing red video game weak point and
Yes,
saying,
exactly. It's like
Yes.
putting a
I'm
big bullseye on
taking
me.
all comers. Yeah.
Take a hit if you want. It'll be hard to miss if you take a hit.
Oh no, I'm so vulnerable.
I'm so vulnerable. Chekhov's vulnerability, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I had
Chekhov's bag
to
lady will have to terrorize me at some point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of
Yeah.
want to tie this all together here.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I recently discovered this. It's barely a book by an author named Bernard de Koven. It's called The Well Played Game, A Player's
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy. He uses this analogy of playing a ping pong game, describes himself as feeling like he's playing a really great game, playing at the top end of his capability against an opponent who he knows is better than him. And so he's like, I'm at the leading edge of my capacity here, and it feels good to be playing at this high level. And then to discover that the opponent was playing with their opposite hand
Mm-hmm.
feels to the narrator in this case like a betrayal because the premise of the game has been betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say we're not playing to defeat one another, but just to keep the rally going for as long as we can. Now there's a different reward cycle that's being activated. He says here, By empowering each other to create new conventions, by establishing guidelines, we assure each other of a common intention and mutual respect for the willingness to play, for the need for safety and trust. We need to recognize that these guidelines are fragile and fictitious, despite all the legislation that we've gone through to be certain that they were mutually held. The only real assurance we have lies within the community of people with whom we are playing. At all times, there is an acceptance of a shared responsibility for the safety of those with whom you play. The point is that somehow, in the process of becoming an adult, in the attempt to establish familiarity, we tend to separate the game from the play community. We develop an official body of rules so that even though we might not be familiar with the people that we're playing with, we'll all be familiar with the game. Baseball is always baseball, no matter with whom we are playing, or as Gwen would remind us, D&D is always D&D. What's so strange about this whole shift is that the search for the well-played game never stops. What stops is our awareness of how to find it. Our awareness that, in fact, it resides not only in the game, but also in the people playing. The play community becomes a game community devoted to the pursuit of a particular game measured in terms of our success or failure as players of that game. As we begin to sense our own power to create our own conventions, however, as we discover that the authority for determining whether or not a particular game is suitable resides not in the game, but in the play community, we are willing even to change the very conventions that unite us. Because we have played well together, because we have played so many different kinds of games together, we have become familiar enough with each other to allow our trust to reside not in any particular agreement, but in the community itself. And this is the point that I'm trying to get to. Just as you were talking about before, Wyllora, it is often a big swing when you're playing to fail. Even in a game like Heart the City Beneath, where character advancement is often explicitly tied to playing to fail, often in order to get a level up in that game, you have to take major harm or betray someone. Over the course of this conversation, I have felt that playing to fail often entails a break from what the game is asking you to do, what the optimal approach to the game is. Our experience of play is not perfectly consistent with what the game is generating, because we have a story that we're trying to tell, and sometimes the game is going to fail us in the generation of that. I just think this idea of a play community is a very powerful one.
Yeah.
The game is the game, but our game is not the game that comes in the box. Our game is also the experience of play, as you were saying, as I think both of you have said over the course of this conversation. The value of a community in which it is safe to fail
Yeah,
is
definitely.
huge.
What it's actually coming up for me is not a tabletop game or anything like that. It is a game. I was in this leadership class at work, and they they had us play I think it's just called Red Blue. We were in tables, and they're like, what's your table name? And then they set us up for 9 rounds of what a lot of us could tell was a prisoner's dilemma situation. All of the table representatives had to choose blue to get, a positive score, basically. But, if one person chose red, they would get +3 points, and everybody else would get plus or -1 point. So
And this is team building.
yeah, this was a lot of, I'll tell you, Bleed is not just for tabletop. There was a lot of emotions coming out from this one. You try to tell people, and still people want to win, The game is called, like, Win as Much as You Can.
Win as much as you can.
So, so yeah, we're going through, and, like, it quickly becomes clear that if this game is competitive, there's no way our team is winning. There's no way there's no incentive for team 3 to ever choose blue because they're already ahead. So I'm like, we have to convince them of my theory, which is that this is a collaborative game and we're all supposed to be getting a positive number of points. Um, but that did not work. Uh, our cohort, our room ended the game with a negative 27. And it was funny because we all started like it was blue across the board. And then the next round, red across the board. And then after that, it was just blue, red, like net zero because there was that trust broken. Like they communicated, like, we're all going to go blue, right? And they're like, yeah, we're all gonna go blue. Immediately, just
Went
one
red.
person chooses red, and then trust is broken for the rest of the game, even when people know that the way to win is to get everybody to choose blue.
Right.
So I don't know, trust is just so fundamental, and that kind of like, maybe the whole of us are not gonna get a ton of points because it's just plus 1 point if we all choose blue, but like we can just be in it together.
I do wonder though. So that's a very kind of pared down, simple game, right?
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
it's
It's like
very
20
mechanical.
minutes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very
Mm-hmm.
mechanical. And I'm thinking like in the context of the games that we play, because I'm coming back to this theme that we were talking about earlier on today, coming to the table and each of us perhaps having somewhat different goals for our characters and also for ourselves as players, right? And that when does that I don't want to call it a misalignment because it's not a misalignment necessarily because that
Mm-hmm.
seems to indicate that they're gonna clash. But when can that diversity of goals
Yeah.
actually work? And when you talk about being a community, Ian, I'm thinking, the theme that we've talked about today and at other points in this podcast about transparency and being able to be collaborative in the way that so if you want your character to fail in a particular way and I can be transparent about that and other people can have buy-in, say, yeah, no, I don't want that for my character, but I'm going to help you get
Yeah.
that for your character. I'm going to be a fan of your character, not just a fan of your character, but I'm going to be a fan of the goals that you have for that character. And I'm going to maybe, if you hand me a dagger, I'm going to pick it up. I'm not going to just
Mm-hmm.
leave it on the table because I know that you want me to stab you with it, and I don't want you to stab me with that dagger. But if you want to be stabbed by that dagger, God, I'm gonna comply. And so a way that we can all come to the table with our unique styles. Maybe this is Pollyanna, as I'm saying, it's also so Pollyanna, but I don't think it is because I think I see it at tables all the time, tables that work well together. And I see people adjusting, taking the agency and the responsibility to give one another the kind of play experience that they're requesting
Yeah.
or asking for in some way of not just the GM but of the other players, right?
Yeah.
But it's more fun if someone else stabs you with it,
Yeah.
right? And you don't know when it's coming. There's that dagger. Ah!
Wait, I recognize that one.
Wait, did I give you that?
Got my initials on it.
So I'm wondering if this might be a moment to ask. And one of the things we do toward the closing of a conversation, and I don't want to end the conversation preemptorily, in a preemptive way. I can't just say that adverb. But one of the things that we normally do to close the session is to ask for a pearl of wisdom. And in this case, the question that came up for me was for you, Wyllora, and we could also chime in on if you want, but for you, if you were talking to someone who maybe this idea of playing to fail is kind of new
Mm-hmm.
and they haven't thought about it very much, but they do play in RPGs and they want to experiment with it, what kind of advice would you give them about, yeah, how to do it or what to experiment with?
Yeah. I think I definitely hit on sort of theme we've been talking about collaboration and kind of communicating your intent of that you're interested in doing that to your table mates and your GM, and then having kind of the trust fall with them that that we can really do this. This is what I want, and I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And I'm giving you that permission to do that.
Come on, stop trying to hit me and hit me.
Yeah, definitely leaning into that collaborative element of it.
Like really going for the
Yeah.
consent in it, right?
Yeah.
Really kind of
And
underlining this is what I'm consenting to this. I am wanting this, right?
yeah, like making sure everybody else like feels comfortable doing this to you,
Right,
you know, not having to pull those punches. Like
right.
I've seen that happen at a table too, where like
Mhm.
someone will kind of like float this idea of like, hey, I kind of want this for my character, and then like to be immediately validated of like, yeah, I'll go there with you,
Mhm.
makes them feel a lot safer at the table, just being able to take the big swings they want to, and
Yeah.
knowing that the other players will catch them.
Yeah, and I think there might also be, I'm thinking, an interesting reflection, self-reflection on about a character, like where are my vulnerabilities? Like if I were
Hmm.
to give you a dagger, let's assume it's not a physical dagger, but it's a different sort of dagger, what's really going to hurt, or what's really going
Yeah,
to really motivate my character to like to step up to adversity. And that's
yeah,
an interesting contemplation on a character, like say a character maybe you've already created or you're just beginning to develop, to ask yourself that question: where would it really smart, and where would it
yes,
really bring up a lot of interesting, material, emotional material for you? Yeah.
Blood.
absolutely.
Blood,
Blood as
exactly.
well.
So we have the literal ones, the dagger, blood, which where are you going to stab them that's really going to draw a lot of blood or really hurt them really a lot. So we can
Hmm.
use that metaphor, but to think in that as a metaphor, and to think about it as a metaphor, and to explore where socially or psychologically, or even in terms of resources, maybe there's something you really value. You have, a trusty sword. What if I broke your sword by accident,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
or stole it, or had it stolen, how would you feel? So it could be in the material plane as well. It's not only psychological wounds, although I tend to like think about psychological wounds first because that's my play style. But it could be lots of other things. Yeah.
Hmm.
A classic one. It's sort of like a shortbread. It's basic, but it always gets the job done.
Hmm.
Is debt. Put your
Oh
character
yeah.
in debt. Doesn't have
Basically
to
like
be.
giving like a ticking time bomb for
Yeah,
a lot of this.
it doesn't have to be like huge and cosmic and like star-crossed or anything. Just like make it so your character owes some undesirable people some money.
Yeah.
Make up a loan shark. Perfect.
Hmm. Yeah, a dagger can definitely be an NPC.
Oh
Here,
yeah,
like
yeah,
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 for sure.
definitely. NPCs are great daggers.
They are.
Hey, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We've been on the call for almost 2 hours. Not all of that is going to
Hey,
make
a
it into
short
the
play
episode,
session.
but yeah. Would you like to plug anything? Are you perhaps up to anything recently or in the
Um,
near future that you'd like for listeners to know about?
yeah, I am always up to something. I just finished running this kind of spin-off event attached to Art Fight. So Art Fight's an annual art trading event for a bunch of artists, like thousands online, and I ran the sort of inaugural year of Heart Fighter Challenge, which is about drawing indie RPG characters. So I got to meet some cool folks that way and hear about their games, and I'll definitely be doing that again next year. and probably some other in-between art-related events. And then I'm also running a jam right now until Black Friday is when it ends. It's called the Time and a Half Jam. It is a Triangle Agency mission jam with the
Hey,
theme
what's
of
Triangle
holidays.
Agency?
Triangle Agency is my favorite game. I haven't directly talked about it here. It is a game of corporate horror inspired by like SCP, Foundation, Control, Severance. It's in that sort of supernatural agents genre.
Horror in triplicate.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I really love it. You should definitely check it out. There's lots of playing to fail in that, I'll let you know. Failure effects are amazing, and it's a lot of playing with what it means to succeed.
Thanks for listening to A Different Kind of Hex. And a special thanks again to Wyllora for coming on the episode. If there's one thing you can count on to happen at the table, listener, it's a whiff, a spoof, or a gaffe. So if you'd like to tell us about your experiences of failure at the table, deliberate or otherwise, reach out to us at adifferenthex@gmail.com. Next time on the show, we'll be talking to our very first non-Hearth guest, the inimitable Karen Twelves, author of Improv for Gamers, among many other feathers in her cap, and so a very fitting conversation partner for what will be the first in an ongoing series about improv techniques at the table called The Giving and Receiving of Offers. Wyllora's work can be found at ArtStation and on itch.io. Just search for her name spelled Wyllora, or follow the links in our show notes. The Open Hearth can be found at openhearthgaming.com or Open Hearth Gaming on Blue Sky, Mastodon, and Tumblr. The music I wrote for the show can be found at lloydeves.bandcamp.com. Play on, listener. We'll catch you in the next one. So you're telling me that Heart Fighters is not a side-scrolling beat 'em up in the world of Heart: The City Beneath?
Not yet.
But it could be.
With your help, listeners, we can make this happen.
Gentle listener. You can make this happen. We have agency.